Welcome, everybody. You have joined the March 2021 Power Apps Community Call. I'm Todd Baginski and happy to have you here today. As always, I have my friend Charles Sterling here. Chuck, how are you doing today? Chuck's rocking. And today we are happy to bring you the Power Apps Community Call with Reza, Uday, Phil, and Mike. And today we're going to talk about really cool topics that are very popular in Power Apps land nowadays. The first one is creating responsive Dataverse for Teams Power Apps, and Reza is going to walk us all through that and create a responsive Power App inside a Dataverse from scratch. Uday is then going to talk to us about a real-world project he's working on right now. Well, actually, technology he used in a project he's working on in a real-world project right now, and how he tagged documents with AI Builder. So that's going to be really cool to see too. And then we also have a very popular topic, ALM. Chuck put out a little poll to Twitter last month and said, hey, what would you like to see on the call? And maybe it was 2 months ago he did that, and we heard loud and clear that people want to hear about ALM. So we've got Phil, Mike, and Mark in the background here today to answer all your questions and get us started with ALM inside of Power Apps. So, in case you have not joined the Power Apps Community Call before, this call happens once a month on the third Wednesday of every month. And in the call, we do things just like I've described here. We have experts from Microsoft as well as from around the world who don't work for Microsoft come in and share what they're doing with Power Apps so we can all learn great things about this together. We also highlight all the great things happening with Power Apps news and community contributions every month as well. So who brings this to you every month? Well, I like to call this our power crew. That's Chuck on the left and me on the right. And then everybody else here, we've got Dana and Heather and Gabriel and Andrew. They all play a part in this call every single month to help market it, to help make you aware of it, to help produce it, and to help publish it up so you can find it, record it, and watch it as well. So thanks to our whole team for making this possible every single month. One unique thing that we have about this call is how many people are here to help you. In our community call, we have all kinds of folks in the chat right now. And my cat's on the other screen right now. I see a lot of people in there today. And so these folks, as well as many other folks from around the world who include Power Apps team members, Power Apps MVPs, Power Apps champions, Power Addicts, so much power we don't know what to do with it. They're all here to help you every month and answer your questions. So if you have a question, go in the chat and answer it. You can definitely get unblocked really quick with such a great team of folks standing by to help you out. And thanks again to all you who are making this call great by doing that as well. So without further ado, I would like to introduce Reza here, and he's going to talk to us about, as I mentioned, creating responsive Dataverse for Teams Power Apps. Reza, how are you today?
Hello, Todd. I'm doing well. How are you?
I'm good. I'm glad you're back here. We both missed the call the last couple times for some different reasons, but it's good to be back here together, and I'm looking forward to seeing what you've got here today. Why don't you take it away here?
Absolutely. Go ahead and share my screen. Before we begin the demo, just a short introduction about this topic. The topic is responsive design in Dataverse for Teams. A little bit about me. My name is Reza Dorrani. I'm a Microsoft Business Applications MVP and a Microsoft certified trainer. I am the leader of the Houston Power Platform user group. I have my own YouTube channel wherein I blog about the Power Platform and more, and that's my Twitter handle. So the topic for today is responsive design in Dataverse for Teams. The assumption here is that you have worked with Dataverse for Teams before. However, I will try and build something from scratch so we can see it live in action. So out here in Microsoft Teams, I have a very simple theme called Power 365. And as part of Dataverse for Teams, I would like to create an app for this specific theme. And for that, you need to have the Power Apps app installed in Microsoft Teams. In my case, I already have it installed and it's right here on the left-hand navigation rail. When I launch this app, this is providing me the Power Apps maker experience right here in the context of Microsoft Teams. And if I head over to the build tab, this will list out all my teams that have the Dataverse for Teams environment created. Now, as part of this team, prior to the demo for today, I already have a table that I have created called work progress tracking. It's a very simple table that has certain data points that I am maintaining for tracking the progress of my work. I will show you this table in action as well. So the first step is to create the app. And right here on the home tab, I will head over to create an app, go to select a team, and I will select my team called Power 365 and click create. And this now will launch the Power Apps Studio experience right here on the context of Microsoft Teams. I will give my app a name. I'll call it Work Progress Tracker and click Save. And this now will create the first version of my app and provided the name that I just provided, which is Work Progress Tracker. Now in Dataverse for Teams, you can directly start building tables right here in the app itself. Yeah. For the purpose of today's demo, I already have my table pre-created. So I'm going to connect to my table, which is Work Progress Tracker. And the moment I create my first table in my app, automatically the home screen of my app in Dataverse for Teams, which is basically the hero layout, goes ahead and connects it to that table. And I have a gallery on the left that shows me all the data associated with my table and a form control on the right, wherein I can perform full CRUD operations, create, read, update, delete against that data. Now, as part of this table, I'll just show you what this table has first. It's a very simple table that has different column types, text columns, choice columns, status columns, dates, and so on and so forth. Now, the goal here is to understand responsive design. Now, as part of this home screen, if I just preview the app, and let's say I start changing the dimensions of my screen, okay? If you observe right now that the form control is to some extent responsive. As the real estate of my screen decreases, the form control automatically starts positioning the elements. And the home screen is responsive, but if I was to build other screens like I do in Power Apps, how do I make those responsive in Dataverse for Teams? Also, if I take this home screen as a reference point in Dataverse for Teams for building responsive screens, this screen uses container controls. It does not use the new responsive container controls, something that was demoed in last month's community call. Now, these container controls that are dropped in here have formulas. So if I look at the width for this container, it's parent.width, that's the width of the screen, minus the left container.width, and here's the left container. So they have actually written formulas for the width, for the height, for the X property, for the Y property of these containers to ensure that elements within those containers are responsive. There is some work involved to build something like this. On the other side, we have the new responsive containers. So let me add a blank screen and show you first what these responsive containers are. If I head over to the plus icon on the left and search for container, these are the two responsive containers, the horizontal one and the vertical one. For now, I'll just pick the vertical container. And as part of this container, I will go ahead and add a few simple controls. Let's say I add 3 buttons in here. And for all of these buttons, just so that we can distinguish them, I will go ahead and name these buttons A, B, and C. Okay, simple, 3 buttons. And I'll try and zoom in as well. So these are 3 buttons that I've added as part of this container, responsive container. Now the direction of this container is vertical. So the elements that I add or the controls that I add in this container will be stacked vertically. If I change this to horizontal, they will be stacked horizontally. I can even define the justification, whether I want to center align these, start from the left. I can even define the vertical alignment. The beauty is that all of these attributes are being maintained at the container level, and all the controls that I add within these containers will follow the pattern that I have defined or the properties that I have defined as part of the container. Now in here are some key properties. One of them is wrap. So with wrap, in this case, it's a horizontal container. If the width of my screen, or let's say the width of my container, does not have enough real estate to fit these buttons, you will note that this horizontal container will start wrapping the controls vertically. And if I change this to a vertical container, if there is not enough height available, these controls will start wrapping horizontally. So with these properties of wrapping, scrolling, center aligning, width, you can even define fill portions and other stuff related to controls. Building responsive screens has been made easier for us. So we can leverage these properties to quickly build responsive screens. And not just that, we also have new screen layouts that are responsive that we can choose from. And we've been provided with 3 screen layouts, as you can see right here. Now in this demo, I'll build a full app in 5 minutes, hopefully. So let's begin with that. I'll pick one of the layouts, and honestly, I'm just picking it randomly right now. I'll pick this one, header, main section, and footer. The moment I pick this, let me rename this to home. So this is going to be my home screen. And as part of this screen, and let me try and center align this, I have those same responsive containers that are baked in right here as part of the template. So here's my main screen container, which is a vertical container. So everything that goes in here will stack vertically. Within this container, we have 3 other containers. So you can nest containers. You can have a container within a container. Now let's see how simple it becomes to build a responsive app in this scenario. So for the header container, I'll add a very simple header, and typically we use a label control. So I'll add a label control here. I will call this work progress tracker. Okay. And maybe I'll increase the font size. Maybe I will center align this, and maybe I'll give it a color of purple. And once I add my information right here for my label control, if I head over to this container, I have the property for vertical alignment. I'll make it stretch. So the label stretches the entire width, the entire height. And then if I select the label control, there's a property called flexible width. So if I enlarge this, it's going to span the entire width of the container. Now, one thing I'm observing is I'm not able to see the text for some reason.
Reza, the font size is 5.
Oh, okay. There you go. Thank you. All right. Don't go to font size 165. All right. So I've just center aligned my label control right here. And as you can see, the control is right there, center aligned in the header. Now I will try and add something similar on the footer. So I can even just copy this control, go to the footer container, paste it right here, go to the footer container property and span it across the entire height. And for the text for the footer container, maybe I'll change this to something like all rights reserved. And this is Power FX, by the way. So I'll just write a simple formula, give me the year for today. So it will paste today's year right in there. Now, this is my header and my footer. Now for the center section, I'll place a very simple gallery control, which shows data from my table. So I'll pick the vertical gallery. Now, the moment I do this, if you observe, the vertical gallery is not spanning the entire width of my container. And for that, all I have to do is go to the container and stretch the horizontal alignment. Now, if I select the gallery, you will see that the width is spanning the entire width of that container, which in itself is responsive. I will connect this gallery to my data source. I will go ahead and choose one of the layout types here for the gallery. And this now adds my gallery control right here. If I go ahead and preview this app, you will see that I have my gallery, I have my header, I have my footer. And as the width or the height of my app changes, you will note that the header and the footer are actually responsive. They're always center aligned, as you can see right here. And that's because of the properties that have been pre-built as part of those responsive containers. Now, if you observe the gallery here, the gallery is sitting in a 1-column format, whereas I have a lot of real estate available right here. So how do I use that real estate and change the behavior of this gallery based on my screen size? This is not something that the container control gives you. This is something that you need to code in to the gallery. Now, as part of this gallery, if I look at any of the controls, so let's pick subtitle 3. If I look at the width says title3.width. So this is my title column. So let's look at the width of this column. There's a formula here called parent.template width. Now, what's the parent of this control? It's the gallery. What's the width of the gallery? Well, right now it's 640, but that's flexible. As the container size changes, the width of the gallery changes. So parent.template width is a property that will give me that responsive width depending upon the real estate or the wrap count for my specific gallery template. Now in this case, I will edit this and add a background to this. So I'll add a rectangle shape. And for the shape, I'll begin from the left. For the width property of the shape, I will do exactly the same thing. Parent.template width. So it will span the entire width of the parent. For the height, I will change this to parent.template height. So it will switch to the template height. It will eat up my entire gallery space. Now, of course, I don't want this to sit at the top. So I will reorder this and send this to the back. And all my label controls, they don't look good in this dark background. So I will change my text color to white. And for my gallery, I will add a little bit of template padding of, let's say, 15. So this looks like they are boxes, right? They look like independent boxes of gallery items. Now I have a lot of real estate on the screen. Why not use it? Well, for the gallery, there's a property called wrap count. I'm going to change this to 4. And now I have 4 items or 4 columns of data as part of my gallery. If I preview this, this is working. This is looking good on a desktop screen that I am on right now. But as my real estate shrinks, it will still try and fit it to those 4 columns because I've hard coded the wrap count to 4. And this will not look good on a mobile experience for sure. So how do I change my gallery wrap count dynamically depending upon the width of my screen? Now, as part of Canvas apps, there is a property in the app object called size breakpoints. These are predefined for you. So 600, 900, 1200. You can add your own size breakpoints. You can define the widths. And there is an additional property called screen.size that gives you a number starting from 1 all the way to the defining all the way through the number of points you've defined right here that you can leverage. So I'll show you how it works. So for my app right here, the work progress tracker header, I will add a property here called home.width. Okay, so what's the width of my home screen? That's what's being printed right here. And this is just for demo. I will also add something here called home.size. Okay, now if I preview my screen, observe my width right now is 1851 pixels and the screen size is being returned as 4. As I start changing the width, as the width of my app changes, notice how those values change. The width changes dynamically, of course. But that number has changed now to 3. Will change now to 2. And as I shrink this, it will go to 1 as well. So these numbers 1, 2, 3, 4, where are they coming from? How are they being calculated? They are being calculated based upon the size breakpoints. So any width less than 600 would be 1, 600 to 900 would be 2, 900 to 1200, 3, greater than 1200, 4. So that's what's defining that size. Now I can leverage that size property in the wrap count and make it truly dynamic. Check this out. Instead of hard coding 4, I can just go the screen name dot size. Now if I preview my app, the width is 4, so wrap count is 4. The size is 4, so the wrap count is 4. If I start changing the width, so once it goes to 3, you will see how the wrap count changes to 3, right? When I go to 2, it changes to 2. So this is dynamic now. The number of columns in my gallery is responding based upon the real estate available on my screen. Now, this is not the default behavior of the container control. This is something that I just coded in by writing that one simple formula that says the wrap count of my gallery is my screen.size, which is a property that is already available for us. So that's one. Now that I have my home screen defined, I would like to create my second screen, which would be my form screen. I'll try and save time, so I'll just duplicate the screen. So I have my form screen right here. I'll just change the text here to form screen so we know we are on the form screen. And I will delete the gallery in the center, and I will add a very simple form control right here. I will connect this form control to my data source, which is my same table. And once I add this form control in here, if I go and preview the app, I won't see any data because my form is in edit mode by default. I can change that right here by changing the form mode to new so we can at least see the form in action for now. Now, if you notice right here, the form control is just sitting randomly somewhere in the middle, starting from the left, and it's not spanning the full width. The reason is because, once again, for the container control, ensure that you have the stretch defined right here, in which the form control is sitting. Second, just like the gallery has a wrap count, the form control has a property called snap to columns, which is turned on by default. I can change how many columns I would like to show as well. So I'm going to change this to 4. Okay. Now, if I preview this, you will note that as I start modifying my screen size, the form control tries to position 4 columns right here accurately. And as the width shrinks and there is not enough real estate available, the form control automatically transforms itself to a 3-column format. By the way, there's a bug in the 3-column format. The second column always shows up as 1 for some reason. And if I shrink this further and it goes to the 2-column format, you'll see that it will sit accordingly. So the form control in reality is already a responsive control in nature. The only thing you have to do here is ensure that you span your columns to the maximum width. In my case, I've spanned it to 4. And for each of the cards in the form control, there's a property called width fit. It's turned on by default. So ensure that this property is on so it fits the width. That's the real estate that is available. Now, in order for me to connect the 2 screens together, all I have to do right here is I have my form control. So for this form control, I need a submit button first. So in the header, I will go ahead and add a very simple icon, and I will call this save. So when the user selects this, all I'm going to do is submit the form, which is my form 1. And once I submit my form control has a property called on success. If this succeeds, I want to navigate the user to the home screen. Okay? As simple as that. And in order for me to connect the home screen and the form control, my home screen has the gallery called gallery 1. So for the form control, I will switch the mode to edit, and I will go ahead and set the item property, because I need to associate it with the gallery, to gallery 1.selected. Now, if I head back to my screen, that's my home screen, when the user selects an item in this gallery, so the gallery has an on select property, I would like to navigate the user to that form screen. So all I have to do here is first ensure that I reset the form. So the form is reset. I'll set the mode of my form. I'm trying to reuse the same form control. I will call this form 1. And then all I have to do is navigate the user to my form screen, which is poorly named as home 1. Also, I want the user to create an item. So I will go ahead and add an icon right here. When the user selects this, I will just change the form mode to new form. Now, if I preview this app, right? Look at the real estate. Right now, the real estate available, let's say I shrink this to, the size 2 or the size 3, right? It's automatically positioning itself. If I select an item, let's say I select flow tips, this will automatically even resize the form for me, navigate me to the screen called flow tips. Let's say I change the description to done. I click save. It will post my data, redirect me back to my screen. And here is the description that is changed to done. So it's actually submitted that data to my data source as well. Let's say it's more responsive. The user is probably accessing this on a widescreen mobile device. Here you go. I'll click on deploy COE. There you go. It's sitting in that 2-layer format. I save this. I'll come back. Want to create, let me change the size again. I would want to create a new record. Okay, that's a new record. Now, you might think that the form control is acting weird right now. It won't act weird when you actually run it in the designer experience. When you're editing it, I have observed that it goes ahead and does this sometimes. So that's how you can leverage these containers and these basic formulas like screen size, width, and just play around with those common controls like galleries and form controls and truly build responsive apps in Dataverse for teams. Now, of course, I want to show you a full-fledged app in action as well. I don't want to just show you this. So as part of today's demo, I actually created an app, and shout out to Deepak Srivastava as well from the Houston user group. He and I built this app together. We're calling this like the quiz app. So we actually, we did a quiz in one of the Houston user group sessions, and we thought about why not use Power Apps and why not use Dataverse for Teams. So here is a quiz app using Dataverse for Teams. And this app is truly responsive as well. And if you observe right here, I'm on the home screen. As the real estate changes, you see how the size of the screen changes, how the button size changes. For all of this, I use the responsive containers. So I'll go ahead and start my quiz. I'll go ahead and pick question 1. Any answers for this? I can't see the chat. What's the answer? This was recently announced at Ignite. It's Windows 10. So this is a quiz app that's running in Dataverse for Teams, right? And I can start going through all the questions, start answering all these questions. I know all the answers, by the way. I already practiced it before this call. So just go through the process. And the key here is not the app. The key here is the responsiveness aspect, right? Right now, I'm on a tablet with experience. Here is a desktop with experience. Here is a mobile with experience. You see how the gallery at the bottom changes its behavior, response, depending upon the size of my screen. I was scheduled to show this app last month, actually, and probably in a future session, I'll come and show this app from the ground up, how we built it. But for now, I'll purposely give a wrong answer, close this app, and I will post my results. I'll store my results in a table in Dataverse and post my results to my team so I can brag about it that I scored 2,000 points. And by the way, this is an adaptive card in action right here. Today's demo was all about responsiveness, so I wanted to show that aspect. Now, one last thing before I wrap up my demo, I will try and see if I can share my mobile device, broadcast my mobile device. Let's see if this works. It normally does. 3, 2, 1, go. Okay, we got it. So I'm heading over to Teams, and I'll head over to my team again. And this is my team called Playzone, bad name. And as part of this team, if I head over to that same quiz app, I want to show it to you in action right here. If I pick that quiz app right now, I'm on a mobile device. Check out how the entire app responds to the real estate I have on a mobile device. It's that same app right here. I'll start the quiz. You see how the size is automatically adjusted. I'll pick question 1, and here is my question. And the answer for this, I think, is Satya. So I'll just pick that answer right here and start moving through the different questions of my app. So a responsive app built in Dataverse for Teams. And this app also works with those same responsive containers. We built this app first without the responsive containers. Once the container controls came out, it probably took me a couple of hours at max to make this app responsive. And trust me, that's extremely powerful. So that was my demo for today. I hope you all enjoyed it. And I'm looking forward to your comments in the chat. Thank you.
Thanks, Reza. You knew what question I was going to ask on how long it took you. A lot of good feedback here. There are a couple open questions in the chat. I think in the interest of time, though, I'll let you handle those in chat and we'll move over to Uday. I do have one question, though, that always comes up with this, so I'm going to ask it so everyone can hear it. What about containers inside of containers? What's the story on that right now?
So the layouts itself are a great example of containers. The screen layout that I chose for the demo today, that's a classic example of a container inside a container. So you can nest containers. It is important that you do that. The key is that the main container that you have to still code the X, Y, width, and height properties, because if you don't, the main container itself needs a responsive behavior related to the screen. Mm-hmm. If you look at that screen layout, I did not have time to show it, but if you actually use any of those screen layouts, go to the main container and check the properties for the width, the height. The width is parent.width. That's the width of the screen. The height is parent.height. So that's already coded for you. And containers within containers, if you go too deep, you might get confused. I have tried it before. I tried a 4-level container option.
Yeah.
I found it really confusing because, setting the flex width here disturbs something at the bottom container. So I wouldn't recommend going nesting too deep, but 2 levels or 3 levels, I was able to successfully pull that off.
Cool. That's great to hear. I love your demo too. Do you have that quiz app available anywhere? Did you post that online?
I am planning to build a video for that and post it and export it the moment Dataverse for Teams has the export option. I know you can hack the export, but I won't do it.
Yeah, cool. Yeah, might as well do it the right way to make sure it does work when everyone imports it, right? That's awesome. Thanks again for sharing that with us. Glad
Thank
things
you.
are
Thank
looking up down there in the South again, too. That's great. All right. Next up, we have Uday coming on to talk to us about tagging documents with AI Builder. Welcome to the call, Uday. We're glad you're here today.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me.
Yeah. So I understand that this topic comes from something you're working on in the real world, right? On one of your projects?
Yeah. So I'm going to go through some background, how we started, where we are at, and what we ended up doing. So I know we started this conversation about a couple of months ago, Todd.
Yeah.
Back in December, January, and so things have changed a little bit. Microsoft has also released a solution where you can actually automate the document tagging. So I'm going to kind of talk on a surface, but thank you. Thank you for having me. I'm super excited to present my learnings, my sharing, right? So what I've learned during this project. About me? I'm a first-time MVP, passionate about Power Platform. I came from App Dev, SharePoint for many years, and then Power Platform. I ran SharePoint user group, still run, but don't tell anyone, but I have more love towards Power Platform now. So, but yeah, I live in Austin, Texas, very close to Reza here. I've known Reza for a long time. So we should never let Reza go first because see, we were given 15 minutes. He took, I think, 25 minutes. So lesson learned. Reza will go last. Anyways, but fantastic, wonderful session. Yeah, I definitely learned a few things there. All right, so that was a little bit about me. Lead Power Platform practice at Cyclotron, and obviously I work from Austin, Texas. So anyone in the call interested to start a group here, Power Platform user group, let me know. Let's work together, and then hopefully things will settle down here soon, so we can go in person, hang out, have some beer, and chat. All right. So the project was about the problem statement. The client was like, we received thousands of documents per month. Over a year, it could be around 15 to 20K documents. And then we're like, how about templates? My first thing was, is it just one template? I can automate it using AI Builder, right? Create a model, and then you input, and you, boom, done. No, and then maybe then came in with that form processing. Now you can it can handle up to 100 templates, meaning you can create in one model. You can have 100 different form templates, and that can handle in one model. So I said, like, how about this? You may only have 100, no more than 100. That's a lot. And like, no. We receive these warranty, security, all these documents from thousands of companies, and there's no format. There's no format. It could be way over 100 format for sure. I was like, then, all right, so what do we do? Then we kind of started looking into options and started with AI Builder, even looked at RPA, robotic processing automation, to see if we can automate using AI Builder. And finally, where we went was, and then the last requirement was, we need to be able to search for some keywords in the document, because they were having, I think, a couple of people full-time sorting out this paper and then categorizing and uploading into SharePoint. And so what keywords they were looking were, those are the key point for us where, okay, we'll map, we create a list with all these keywords mapping, right? If you have this keyword, then this is the mapping is this, right? So that's the design we went. The first solution was using AI Builder, and then went over to Azure Cognitive Services and then computer vision. We landed a computer vision, the last option, and I'll share why. The first one, AI Builder, I already told you why we could not do it, because of various templates. The model was, we'd have to create constantly these new models and train anytime new documents would come. And so because of the variation of document that we were receiving, we could not do that. And so as we were kind of looking into that, Microsoft came in, I think earlier this year, where this document automation. So, okay, so many text in here, but I mean, kind of summarized. Requires a model to be trained. That's I just now mentioned just now, right? Supports only up to 100 templates in one model. And then the document automation was recently released. It has some dependency on you need a Dataverse, you need an app license, you need AI Builder add-on, and then also you have reviewing, whoever are the reviewers, they need licenses. And then came in OneDrive for Business. So OneDrive for Business has an action called convert file. The only problem was if you have, you can feed this into OCR, and OCR requires optical character recognition, right? Requires optical, that requires an image. So, but OneDrive, if you give PDF to OneDrive and try to convert into image, it only converts the first page. It doesn't convert the rest of the pages. Like, boom, that's not going to work. So, all right. So, where do we go now? And then we went to computer vision and said, all right, there's a REST API or a read API for computer vision. And then that's when we were able to extract all of the content in JSON, and then we parse out the JSON to see what the content is. And that's what I'm going to show you here. I have all of these references towards the end. I'll put it in, but I will show you my other screen here. And this is just a high level flow, but I'll show you. I know the call is for Power Apps, but I'm showing you guys kind of sneaked in just the Power Automate part of it. But trust me, you can create an app to automate just for the time being here, because this is only limited time. So I was focusing on just the code that I wanted to pass. All right. So
Yeah, absolutely, right? You could make a Power App and upload an image and kick this off, and then go through the process, facilitate field workers or something like that, right?
Absolutely, yeah. The ultimate goal was to obviously you can have an app where, like you mentioned, frontline workers can upload and then pass it into and then tags properly. In this case, we were getting it from FTP, that from third party, we were getting the files, and then the way we did was one time upload into the library, and then files were scanned, processed, because you have to extract metadata for each of those. So I'm showing you here all three options and how we were able to get strings, right? Extracted strings. And then obviously, like I mentioned, we went with this option because this was more scalable. This gave us what we needed. We ran into issues on this one because of limitation. This one was OCR, the OneDrive, because not all documents are received in an image. If they are received in PDF, then OneDrive for Business connector would only give us the one page. I did kind of reach out to Microsoft. I haven't heard yet. And like, hey, when are you going to have this? So if this becomes OneDrive for Business can convert all of the PDF pages into image, then this becomes much simpler. Whereas right now we're doing HTTP. So I do have Cognitive Services API that I have to create the service in Azure. Same thing with a computer vision service in Azure, right? So you definitely have to create those endpoint keys, then only you can use. But this is very straightforward. You just have the key, plug it in, establish the connection, and then you start using it. I'll show you first the first thing that we tried. Here, basically passed in, like I said, we got the file, and then the solution also that we implemented was, I'm going to show you here settings. And so if the status is new or rerun, sometimes it may fail. So they want to rerun. So we're only running on these statuses. That we were kind of minimizing number of runs, because obviously you're processing thousands of files. You don't want to just run because the capacity is a limited capacity, right? So doing this, you have Azure consumption. You're minimizing number of user licenses that you don't need premium Power Platform licenses. You only need the Azure consumption. So it goes from, I don't know, from 1 or 2 users, user licenses you can do in Azure, very, very minimum. From you're comparing dollars to pennies, right? So definitely best practices, use that one. It saved us a lot of runs, which means a lot of money for the customer. And then So when you convert, I could only use for one page. If it's a one pager, then the convert OneDrive worked. So I'm extracting the results, and then basically it has each pages will have each lines, and then you parse through and extract, and then you create. So I'll show you one for this one, right? So I'll show you one result where I have. Okay, so before I do that, this is the library, and that's the, come on. Seriously? Oh, there you go. And then that's the category, subcategory, and then the keywords that we wanted to search. So this is, you may think this is still manual, but at least it gives you an option to, and so when we give this to the customer, they were like, oh yeah, this is, they wanted to be able to manage, so they don't have to go to flow to say, okay, here are my keywords and here's the mapping. So you just go into the flow, you're kind of extracting that logic from flow into list, and they can manage. So they're not only be able to use this one for this just solution, that they can be ported to another solution also. They change, you can change, right? As long as the keywords, the columns, and they are same, you can use the same flow again and again for to multiple departments as well. All right, and then if I show you here, I'm not watching the chat. I'm just focusing on here, but I'll get back to any questions if there are. So let me see the output. So there's the output right from that file that was uploaded. I am okay. So that didn't run. And how about on the last one? Do until. So if I were to compare. So similar content, like see the text were extracted. So the gist of this demo is that there are multiple options. Understand your scope of it. You hit limitation on AI builder, out of the box connector, extract text from image. There's a limitation. OCR, same thing. There's a limitation because of OneDrive. If your content, if your source file is all images, then OCR is your perfect place to go. Very easy to configure. There's no just one API that you have to register in Azure, and then after that you're set. But then if that nothing else works, then go to Computer Vision Read API, and that solves the problem. I know I kind of summarized at a high level. Hopefully this is as useful. Any questions for me?
I did see a question that Daniel had regarding the confidence score. So when you do the OCR, you can get back a score that tells you how confident OCR
That's right.
thought it was it got the answer right, right?
That's right. Yep.
Do you have anything built into your process that if it's below X score, that it sends an email to somebody to look at it or rejects it automatically or anything like that?
So there is the API has different statuses. And so based on that, we're logging everything into another list. And so based on the type of the solution, that I don't have it here, but on our, if it failed like 5 times in a row within the 30 minutes, then we will alert. Sometimes they're not important. They just want to run, and they will come back and review. So based on different statuses, the sentiments, the statuses that they're putting in. You have running started. If it's on running for 10 minutes, then there's an issue. We had to put some delay because the REST API was taking time to process. It will be on running, and so there are some logic to it. I think on here somewhere. I had to put 30 seconds, and that we found that by playing that, we were able to overcome the error message. Otherwise, it would just fail and say it's still running, and then the next step will start. So we had to wait for 30 seconds for that to finish. So yeah, we're looking few of those. Obviously, this is a trimmed down version for this demo, not a full, but at least it kind of encompasses what you can do and what possible within this 3 options. Yeah, here's the delay.
There it is. I see. Yeah. I'm glad you were able to talk to us about the 3 different options, because in your case, you had to pick this option, but there are other options that
That's right.
you have. In your case, if you only had 20 different templates, for example, you could have gone with those other options. Did you run into any throttling limits with this? I know you said it takes about the 30 seconds to make sure you get your response, but did you have to make sure you didn't submit a certain amount within a certain time so the service didn't block you?
So we did not test the volume that they were receiving, where yes, they were about 15 to 12 to 15 to 20, somewhere around like 15K files, but it was basically spread out. There were, so I have not tested with like hundreds of files. We tested about couple of hundreds, but not in thousands. And since they were spreading out, the files they were receiving was, they were receiving from different vendors, and they're kind of spread out. If it was from one vendor, then it would have been like, we'll have to focus on that throttling issue, but we didn't run into that. So yeah, I don't know what it would be if I were to throw in thousands of files in here.
Gotcha. Well, that's nice. You didn't have to deal with that.
Yeah.
Very good. No concurrency worries there at all. Do you have a blog post or example of this anywhere, or is to follow up on this one? Or
yeah,
I saw you added some links on related topics to the slide deck too.
Yeah, I don't have right now, but that's probably a good idea. That's kind of motivation for me to get something going. I would like to share, but yeah. So some of the things that also will be, if you have working with free version, then you get 4 megabyte files. If your files are larger, then you have to go with paid version, which is you get up to 50 megabyte files can be processed. There's a limitation of if you have a landscape document, and then, later, and then in the middle you have a landscape, then that comes in as invalid. So yeah, lots of few limitation, but as long as you're just standard format, it works perfectly fine.
That's great. It's amazing how little code we have to write to do things like this nowadays.
Right, exactly.
Thank you for sharing. Appreciate it.
No problem. Yeah, thanks for the opportunity. Like I said, thank you so much.
You're welcome. Come on back sometime.
Oh, absolutely.
All right.
Thanks.
There are some questions in the chat there to follow up on as well.
Okay, I'll go over there and hang out.
Cool. Sounds good. All right. That brings us to our next presentation, which is going to be Phil and Mike. Hey, guys. Thanks for coming to talk to us about ALM today.
It's good to be here.
It's good to have a tag team combo here at the end of our session. And as I mentioned at the beginning of the call, this ALM topic has been very popular by people who like to tune into the call. So I'm sure you guys have a very excited audience. So I'll let you guys take it from here and introduce yourselves and tell us how we get started with ALM and Power Apps.
All right. So thanks for that introduction. So we'll do a quick round of introductions. We actually have 3 people here. Mark is hiding behind, so we're going to have the real expert handling the chat for your questions. And so I'll start by introducing myself. My name is Phil Topness. I work on Microsoft's Power Apps customer advisory team. We're a small team that works on the largest deployments of Power Platform around the world. And then you'll hear Mike speak next.
Hi, I'm Mike Ochs. I am a vendor with the PowerCat team at Microsoft, and I'm a business applications MVP.
Hey everyone, I'm Mark Schweigert. I'm on the PowerCat team as well with Mike and Phil, and I've got a background not only in ALM, but ALM with the Power Platform for many years, so happy to answer questions during the chat while Mike and Phil are talking.
And I'll put some URLs on the screen too if you want to see some more about PowerCat. We have a couple video series, and of course you probably know of the COE Starter Kit, which is also owned by PowerCat as well. And so Mike and I are going to break this in 2 parts. I'm going to talk about the foundation. So if you don't have a foundation in solutions and some of the core concepts of ALM for Power Platform, I'm going to give you that foundation. And then I'll turn it over to Mike, who's going to talk about some of the ways that we're automating this more broadly. But we'll start talking about ALM in general first. And so I always like to, ALM means a lot of different things to different people. So I always like to raise the question, what is it? And I always think about it like this. If you have ever gotten an email from your tester, who is hopefully in their own test environment, and they found a bug, and you try to replicate that bug in your environment, and you start typing those 5 words we've all typed. It works on my machine. Right? That's one of the things that we need ALM to help prevent, right? The goal is to automate those processes so you're not chasing phantom bugs or real bugs that you can't find because they just don't happen in your dev environment. Now, another reason we need ALM is if you've ever delayed putting your app into test because you wanted to squeeze in one more feature and it just took too long to deploy to test, or worse yet, you waited to put real features in users' hands in productions because it just takes too long to put it into prod. These are all the types of things that we need ALM to systematize so that we can do more rapid releases, but also make sure those releases are consistent so we get the same results each time. And so we're going to talk about how to use the ALM capabilities in the platform, but also how to automate it and then put an app layer on top of it to make it easy for me. But before we do that, we're going to watch this dude stick the landing, right? Export solution, import, publish. Nailed it. All right. So what are solutions? So here's how I like to think about them. So on the left, I've got my dev environment. On the right, I've got my test environment. And so my app has a Canvas app. It's got a couple Dataverse tables. It's got a model-driven app. It's got, some flows. Now, I can put that in my test environment by importing the MS app file, replicating the table differences, importing the flows. I'll probably get it wrong. And so that means what my tester's testing is not what I built. And so what solutions allow us to do is to take everything in one package, import it into test, and import it into dev. So makes a lot more sense if we can see them. So let's take a look at if you've never heard of solutions before, how you can start using them with any app. So I built this app. I spent literally minutes on this app. This is the Mike Topper app. And this allows us to imagine what Mike would look like with something on his head. Right? This is his normal uniform, but we can imagine what other ones look like. I didn't consider solutions when I built this, so it's not in a solution. But it's okay. I can still add it to a solution by going to make.powerapps, coming into solutions, and creating a new solution. So this solution is really just a container for different Power Apps capabilities. So I'm going to do this in my dev environment. And so what I'll do is I'll create the solution, and we're going to add my Mike app to it. And to answer the question that I assume is hitting the chat right now, of course we'll share the Mike app with you. All right, so now I have my Mike's Head solution. So here I can add existing components, even if I didn't know about solutions before this. And so I can add my existing Canvas app here, which is my Mike Topper app. And so from there, now I can bundle in other things and export it and move it into other environments. And just to show a more sophisticated app, here is my Catfisher app. This is a little more complicated app. It uses Dataverse for storing images. Click here, it's going to download a new AI-generated image of a cat. And just while that's loading that image, just to show you, this is total aside. This has nothing to do with Power Platform. These images come from this cat does not exist. I like to go here. This person does not exist. These are AI-generated images of people that don't exist. This is the trippiest thing. I mean, I can spend an hour just hitting refresh on this, but this app saves you the time of hitting refresh for cats. All right, so we'll name this one Mike. We're going to rate it 5 stars. It's a handsome cat. It's going to store it all into Dataverse. And so behind the scenes, I have a solution for this app, and I just wanted to show some of the things that you can put in solutions, and then we'll move it into a test environment. All right, it's not what I expected. There we go. So here are all the elements of my solution. Right, so I've got the Canvas app we were just looking in. I've got connection references. So as I move this, the connection stays specific to my environment. I've got a couple flows, one that sends me an email when a 5-star rated cat like Mike comes through. I've got environment variables so that as this moves between the environment, that kittygram email goes to a test address or prod address. I'm not spamming the wrong people. Security roles, schema, and all of that. And so when I want to move this to my other environment, I can export it, publish to make sure I get all the changes that I put in there, that they are reflected in my solution, And then once it's done publishing, I'll be able to export this as a package that then I can import into my test environment. And so when I'm ready to import this, then I can come into my test environment. Import that exported file. And then this will take all of those components and it'll prompt to rewire my connection references. And then for the most part, I'm ready to go with this app in my test environment. And so that's the manual process of using a solution to take all of your components and moving it into another environment. Now, this can be automated through Azure DevOps and the Power Platform build tool. And so this Azure DevOps pipeline does a lot of those same steps I just did. It publishes customizations, it exports the solution. It runs Power Platform Checker, which is a step I skipped, so we can force these consistent practices on our apps, including stopping the pipeline if it has errors that are higher critical, which is what I'm doing here. And then what this does too is it unpacks that file, because it's really just a zip file full of configurations for the app, and it puts it into source control repo. So now we can use source control and track changes and go back in time with our no-code apps. I can also set up a release pipelines to deploy to my QA environment, and with approval from QA, deploy to my prod environment or more environments. And I can do all of this in GitHub too. Here is all the components of my solution file in GitHub source control. And the Power Platform actions for GitHub allow me to export the solution and put it into source control and release it to prod or test or things like that. And so that is a whirlwind tour of what solutions are, how to use them to move your components, and then how to automate that, or at least an overview of the capabilities that are available for automating it. And all that forms the foundation of what Mike is about to show us.
Thanks, Phil. All right, so essentially what Phil just walked us through is the basis for all ALM within Power Platform. So once you have the understanding of how solutions work and what components are solution enabled, our decision was to take that a little bit further and build a couple of reference applications on top of the ALM that exists for Power Platform. And what we've done, because we understand that there is a need for this in in the Power Platform world. There's a lot of guidance out there. However, there's not a ton of sort of material that you can use and take and make your own and actually get started with it. So as the PowerCat team took it upon themselves to build out reference implementations of how you can do good ALM. And good ALM means you start with a solution, you put all of your components into a solution, you take that solution and you source control that solution into, be it GitHub or Git in Azure DevOps, and then ultimately you have a history of the changes that you've made to your application that you can look at differences between. If something goes wrong, you can go back to a previous version. And then ultimately push that into different environments, right? So when Phil was showing the video, of all the steps that it takes, it's the goal of the PowerCat team and this Alm Accelerator project to give that an easy button on top of all of that stuff that you have to do and you have to know. So what I'm going to show in the next 5 minutes or so is 2 reference implementations that we've built, one on top of GitHub, one on top of Azure DevOps, that actually target 2 different personas. So there's a need from the more advanced makers, the more advanced users, to be able to kind of who understand Git concepts like pull requests and merging and things like that. That they need that in order to kind of do the traditional development ALM. But there's also a need from the business maker persona, the person that's just out there building flows and is picked up on Power Platform and they like it and they've been using it to automate their processes, but they don't know how to take what they've built and necessarily put it into a source control system and then ultimately push it to new environments. So we've built 2 reference implementations, reference applications built in Power Apps that target those 2 personas. So the first one, the one we're looking at here, is for that business maker persona. And the idea behind this is that the business maker may or may not understand solutions. They probably don't understand how to do deployments and source control their work, but they want to get started with building something. So in this application, the user would go in and they would create a new project, and they would say, this is my community project, right? Give it a description to build something cool. Maybe they're gonna build the Mic Topper app, which I didn't wear my hat today, I apologize, or my clown wig. Next time I will. So then you would create a project from here, and what would ultimately happen is it would go into this pending state. So you can see here, I've got a pending community outreach project in place here. That will trigger a Power Automate flow in the background that actually sends an email to an administrator to approve that project. So there is an approval process built into this. And that approval process goes from the time that you create the project till the time that you start to deploy that project to the different environments. So once you want to deploy to a production environment, there will be an approval in place that similarly a administrator will get an email and it'll say, hey, is it okay to push this? Has it been tested? Have we verified that it's not going to break anything in our production environment? So on and so forth. So I've already got one here that's approved. Once I would approve this email, right? So I go in here and say, this looks good. Hit submit. And then this would go to approved once it finishes provisioning all the environments and solutions and GitHub repos in the background. From here, as a maker, I would simply hit open project. That would drop me directly into the solution that was provisioned and the environment that was provisioned, so that a maker would, without having to go in and create the solution themselves and understand how solutions work, from right here, they could go in, create a new app and get started. And then ultimately what they would be able to do is deploy this. And when they deploy it, it unpacks the application, it puts it into a GitHub source control, and then it deploys it into the configured environments, test and prod in this case. So this is the maker, the sort of business user scenario. The other one that we have that we're building out right now is the advanced maker, or targets the advanced maker persona. And as you'll see, this looks very similar, but it's got a few different bells and whistles in it, right? So in this case, we're not creating a project. We already have our environments in place. We have our solutions that are sitting out there, and our goal is the same. Our goal is to source control our solutions, to push them into downstream environments, and also our goal is to get approval along the way, to get consensus from our development team that says, hey, you know what, I'm gonna push my changes here from this application into an Azure Git repo. I'm gonna create a pull request. So again, this is the persona who understands sort of what a pull request means. A pull request is in Azure DevOps or in GitHub is essentially, I would like to pull this this application into our main repo or our main repository for source control. But in order to do that, there are some steps, approval steps and things like that along the way that have to be done. So when you create a pull request in here, behind the scenes, it's actually going to run Azure DevOps pipelines. And I didn't show this in the maker. The same idea for this app happens in the maker app. It uses GitHub workflows, which are the equivalent of a pipeline in Azure DevOps. But if we look at our pipelines, for example, or actually we want to look at, say, our pull requests, right? We can see that there are some pull requests in here for me. You can see that we have a build validation, and this is actually in the PowerCat team using this application to do their ALM for the COE starter kit. So the COE starter kit team is doing the same. We're using this application in order to source control, move things to different environments, validate the solutions before they get pushed out for others to consume. So in this case, we have a build validation check. So when we source control the solution, it will actually go in and run a pipeline to build this. And in this case, it happened to fail. So we know that there's something wrong with the solution that needs to be fixed. And as a result, we won't be able to approve and complete this. We won't be able to move it into a testing environment. This could be a deployment issue. It could be that somebody went in and manually updated the solution and they made a typing error and now it won't repack. It could be any number of things, but the idea behind this is that we all along the way are validating what we're building and making sure that we run tests against it and things like that before we actually push it to our other environments. So we are about 7 minutes over time on the whole. Is now a good time to sort of take questions, Todd? I didn't get to demo a whole lot of this, but in the 15 minutes that we had, I hope that helped to understand what we're trying to accomplish.
Yeah, I think that helps. I'm sure people are anxious to know when can they see both of these and use them.
Yep, good question. So the ALM for makers, the ALM Accelerator for makers is actually out in, it's not this one, it's the other one, is already out. It's available as part of the COE starter kit. There are ALM components as part of the COE starter kit. So the first app that I showed you is available, and you can get that as part of the COE starter kit. The advanced makers is currently in private preview. Very, very soon we will be in public preview. So trying to get a little bit more feedback on it from people who are using it and incorporating feedback into the application. But we're at the point right now where some of the blocking issues that we were having with the platform are being unblocked, and so we're very close to being public preview. But if anybody wants to join private preview with it, before we go to public, please reach out to us. We're happy to get more eyes on it and get feedback on the app.
That sounds good. Now, I know the COE is a big thing and it takes a while to install. And so I'm curious, and maybe other people who have installed COE before are wondering this as well. Do you have to install everything from the COE kit in order to take advantage of your apps here in the ALM goodness? Or can you install a subset of the COE just to handle the ALM pieces?
Yep. So this app and the other app, both of these apps are independent of the COE starter kit. So you don't need to install any of the solutions from the COE starter kit in order to get started with this.
Oh, good. So they don't have any dependencies. It sounds like you can ramp up on the ALM pretty quickly that way too.
Yep. The setup of this app that's in private preview right now is a bit involved. I would tell people to take a day to get it, set up. But it's the head start that you get from using this app is well worth that one day, because if you're starting from scratch with ALM, it can take weeks or months to get going. So we've solved a lot of the issues that are common to people who try to get started with ALM and the Power Platform. And believe me, I've been on projects before this thing came along, and I was part of those teams getting started on it. And we spent months, getting to the point where this app is kind of already at. There's pipelines, there's YAML pipelines running behind this app that can be used independent of the app as well as a reference for somebody who didn't necessarily want to use the front end, but wanted to set up their own ALM process. So even if you're not using the app, the YAML pipelines that are behind it are definitely something that should be checked out.
Gotcha. So I imagine you're shipping those pipelines along with this too, is your plan?
Yep, exactly.
Fantastic. Do you have different pipelines for, I saw you had a whole bunch in the list. Are there different pipelines for different purposes that you've created?
So the pipelines are focused on deploying a single solution. So we've got templates that are parameterized so that you can reuse them for different solutions, but the list that you saw earlier is a pipeline per solution. So The YAML behind the scenes is all parameterized. You just set up a pipeline in Azure DevOps that points to those templates and says, this is my solution. This is, and that's about it. So.
Gotcha. That makes sense. So you guys are putting tons of work into this, obviously, and there's a lot more pieces to ALM besides what Phil talked about on, hey, here's a solution and how you packaged it, and what you're showing on awesome automation to build the whole process out. There's folks in chat talking all about ALM. They want a dedicated ALM session even. I have a feeling we're going to be asking you guys if you can come back and follow up more in depth on some of these things here as well. This is really exciting.
Yeah, absolutely.
There's a lot of questions related to licensing and other things like this too. We're going to hold on a second to those questions, everybody. Chuck and I will finish out all the other slides related to the call here, and then we can all discuss those questions together here at the end of the call today. Thanks a lot, Mike. Appreciate you working on that. How long have you been working on that, you said? Over a year now?
The work started before I came on, but
Okay.
I came on back in October. Mark had already sort of ramped up on a lot of it, so he and I are working on it together.
Awesome.
Yeah, I would say it's taken us months to get to the level of robustness and flexibility that we have in the ALM accelerators, and which is exactly why we built it in the first place, right? We don't want people to have to spend that level of effort to get up and running with enterprise grade robust ALM with the Power Platform, and so hopefully it will serve that purpose.
That's great. I'm really glad to see it. That's always been one of the things that I have really been near and dear to my heart, is how to figure out how to be a pro dev with my software development lifecycle within Power Apps. And it looks like you guys are making that a lot easier for all of us. So thanks. We look forward to seeing that and what we can do with that in the future for sure.
Thank you.
Yeah. That brings us to the last pieces of our call today. So where can you go learn more about this? Well, everybody who's presented has contributed many great links here to this slide. And when we share the recordings, this deck will also be shared as well. So here's more places you can go to learn about all these great things. Recent news in Power Apps here. Have you seen the new Powerapps Mobile App, everybody? It's got a new look and feel, and I see Reza nodding his head. It's in public preview now. I suggest you go check it out and read about what's new in it. There's some really nice new features, and it looks just great, too. We are going to be learning about Powerapps custom functions libraries next month, and there is a repository that our friend Matthew Devaney has released, and you can get a link to it right here, as you see, and this is different custom functions libraries for Power Apps. There's a few different people contributing to it right now, and I know that those folks, as well as April and the official one from Microsoft, are going to be here soon to show us about that topic on an upcoming call. Don't forget, our demo extravaganza is coming up, and form a team or do it yourself and see if you can be the big winner this year. And then the big news as well is the Microsoft Power FX language. That's really exciting, and isn't it neat to see some language on what we all know and love here as Power Apps moving into more things in Microsoft? It's like it makes my day, it makes all of our life a little easier too, I think. So those are cool things to check out as far as the news goes. Back to our demo extravaganza. This is a contest that we have had 2 years in a row, and we're having it again this year. And you can join yourself or you can form a team, and the idea is you submit your app, and then the community votes on what are the top 5 or 8 apps we'll pick this year, and then everyone comes on in our July call and gets to demo them. And then the community picks a winner on the coolest Power App. So Reza and Deepak have won that in the past. Who's it going to be this year?
And Todd's actually added the ability to do components. So based on your guys' request. So
that's right. And so we're going to have a demo extravaganza for Power Apps. It could be any type of Power App. And we're also going to have a demo extravaganza if you've made a component. I know there's hundreds of components out there, and those are real fun and quick to demo. We will be putting out more details about that in May on how you can submit your entry. All right. We always like to showcase our awesome Power Apps community. So I made a cool new word cloud this morning, and this is all the folks who have tweeted with the hashtag PowerAppsCC for our fun Power Apps community call in the last month. The bigger the name, the more often they tweeted about it. So thank you to everybody here. If you'd like to learn how I made this cool word cloud out of Twitter, I made it with a Power App and a wordart.com website, and I made a video. If you'd like to go watch how to use the Twitter search API from a Power App, you can learn about that and make a cool word cloud too. Thanks to everybody for tweeting this. If you're ever looking for cool news about Power Apps, go search this hashtag on Twitter. You're going to find all kinds of amazing things happening. A couple other calls that do the same thing as ours. The first one is the Power Addicts Hangout. You can learn more about this on wearepoweradicts.com. They do a call much like ours every month. Just hang out, talk about Power Apps, learn, and have fun. Another place you can learn more about this and more of the snacky, smaller type videos is the Less Code, More Power video series. I've seen that Donna and Sarah have been able to even record this and keep this going remotely, and it's a fun series. So if you're looking for other information about Power Apps, I suggest you check out their show as well. All right. Chuck, you want to talk about the developer survey a little bit?
Yeah, we actually run these calls in conjunction with the Office 365 team, and they wanted to basically invite you to give them feedback on how we can actually improve Office 365. So there's actually a great survey there, and if you actually want to be a formal part of their development process and their planning process, there's even a success panel, so you could actually be part of their usability team. It's a nice survey. I'm not usually an advocate of surveys, but this one is actually worth checking out. So if you've got some time and you want to give the Office team some feedback, please do check out these links. Todd?
Yeah, thanks. Okay, that brings us to the end, and then we are going to do questions after this. But again, I'd like to say thanks, like we do every month. This recording will soon be available for you on the Microsoft 365 YouTube channel. You see a link to it right there. I've also seen it pop up in chat a few times there. You can also follow the Microsoft 365 Dev Twitter account, and that's where the updates are blasted out about this call and when the video is posted, etc. I'd like to say thanks to everybody who came on and spent their time as a presenter today, as someone just helping in chat. This is a great community to be a part of, and I'm happy to be a part of it. Our next call is April 21, 2021. Lots of 21s there, again at 8 a.m., and we will see you all there.